My name is Lindley Heynes. I'm from South Africa, Cape Town specifically. I am 37 years old and I arrived in the Netherlands on the 1st of May 2024. I currently work for KEMBIT as a senior infrastructure consultant. I have a very long background in cloud computing as well as on-premises computing. I've got a background that covers both engineering as well as architectural aspects of technology. I've also worked in various senior roles through different leadership, with different leadership portfolios and responsibilities. Currently at KEMBIT, in my role, I am deployed to different client projects. So I don't just work for one specific client at a time. Even though in my current situation, I am focused on one specific client, but the way KEMBIT is set up is that, there are different configurations in which they use different consultants. So in my current role, I'm focused on one specific client, and I'm helping them mature their ICT organization, helping them define and mature their ICT strategy, and then hopefully helping them to modernize their ICT resources as well as empowering their people through the process. The opportunity found me, right? So it's not something that I was specifically looking for. I was, very happy in Cape Town, very happy in South Africa. However, I always knew that I would end up in the Netherlands. It's something that I always wanted to do. I was in the Netherlands for the first time in 2016. And I really loved the culture of the Netherlands. I love the fact that it's truly multinational and multicultural. I also think that it's a country that is very well run. And as a parent, I always said that this is a place where I would want to raise my children for obvious reasons. Very good infrastructure, very well run government, very good educational facilities. But also it's a country that gives me access to various other countries. So it's a springboard where we can do a lot of traveling. The Netherlands is very beautiful, so it's a very walkable city, so you can walk anywhere. Sorry, it's a very walkable country, so you can walk almost anywhere and always have a very good experience, both in terms of the aesthetics, but also knowing that it's very safe. I also think the Netherlands has an abundance of opportunities in terms of career development. I don't think that this is a country that where you'll run out of opportunities anytime soon. And I also think that it's a place where I can still grow and develop a lot, because people here have a lot more experience in terms of having a well-working infrastructure across the country. So there's a lot that we can learn, that we can contribute as a South African, but also a lot that I can learn from the Dutch. And like I said earlier, I think the culture is very good because people like to share knowledge. People are very open-minded. They like to have positive dialogue. So yeah, I think the Netherlands for me ticks many boxes beyond just a job or a job opportunity. For me, the culture is the most important, and being able to raise my kids in a positive society is the most important. Okay, that's a good question. So it's very difficult to separate. Obviously, we know the recruitment process, right, is something that's independent, but then the whole relocation journey is almost married into that process. So it's very difficult to separate the two, because you see it as, you are tempted to see it as one big experience, right? Although it isn't. So to answer your question, I think Olav's recruitment process, I think it's very professional. I think that without the assistance from the Olav team, as well as the partners that they work with, I don't think it would have probably taken 18 months instead of 3 months to get here, if I'm honest. So I think that the information that was shared was on point. I think that it was valuable information, and I think the tips that we received made the process a lot easier. But relocation from one country to another with a family is always going to be stressful, and there's never going to be enough time to get everything done in a way that's comfortable. So we took the inconveniences that naturally existed, and we just took it on our chins, and I think we had a good journey. We were very lucky to be here within 3 months, 4 months maybe. It was a massive, massive change. We had to think about our home back in South Africa. We had to think, there's so much logistics, but I think that just the recruitment side of it, the transparency, I think that made things a lot easier for us. So I think it was positive. I know that that's not maybe a simple answer, but it's not a simple process, right? So there's no yes, no answer to this type of thing. But I think that the experience and the support from the Olav team, all of their partners, as well as the KEMBIT staff was fantastic. People were very easy to get a hold of. They were very responsive, and for me, that's the most important. So yeah, it was good. Luckily, I've got a good sense of humor, or so I think, right? So even when someone says something to me that I don't understand, I got a poker face, I make like I understand. I'm kidding. Look, obviously, Afrikaans, I have a big advantage because I speak Afrikaans, and that helps me to relatively easily understand Dutch. And I have been learning Dutch as well, and I think at this point, my reading of Dutch and comprehension in conversation is very good. However, when you arrive in Maastricht and you start learning the Limburg version of Dutch, or you start becoming in conversations and you are learning the different dialects, it does open up a whole new world. It does make you realize that you actually don't know as much as you thought you knew, right? Fortunately, the people here are very courteous when you ask them to explain. If you ask them to maybe repeat a phrase or repeat a sentence or explain with context. So that's how I overcome those language barriers and challenges, by just asking, hey man, I don't know what you are saying. Please, can you repeat, or I try to navigate. But yeah, for example, where I stay in Maastricht. My neighbors are all full hardcore Dutch. They don't speak English at all. But somehow we figured out how to communicate. So they speak a bit slower so I can catch, the pronunciation. And then I respond in Dutch up until I run out of words. And then I speak in English, and then I use a lot of hand gestures, to make sure that we can communicate effectively. But I always knew that it was going to be a learning experience and it was going to take time. But it's good when people are open and willing to explain things and make it make sense. One of the pieces of feedback I gave to Patrick, and I think 1 or 2 other senior members here, is that the culture that I've experienced when I arrived here seems to be exactly like it was advertised throughout the interview process, right? Because one of the questions I ask when it's my turn to ask questions, when I'm starting a new adventure, is cultural questions. How is the culture? How do people collaborate? What do they find important? And, so that for me, that was one of the most refreshing things, was that the culture, the collaborative culture that KEMBIT advertises, or that they, say they have, they really do have that, right? People here are very collaborative. There's a open door policy everywhere. There's not a massive, big, slow, bureaucratic org structure. It's very easy to get access to people here. And people generally like to help each other, right? There's a good sense of teamwork. For me, one of the biggest differences is, or maybe something that is different at KEMBIT. The people at KEMBIT assume that you have been here for 10 years because they've been here for 10 years. As an example, you'll notice that a lot of KEMBIT's staff have been here for very long, right? Which is credit to the company's culture. But oftentimes those guys and ladies will think that, oh, you've also been here for 10 years, therefore you know this is how we do A and this is how we do B and this is where you find the information to policy C, as an example. So they make a lot of assumptions, right? And then you gotta say, hey, I've only been here, it's my second day. Where do I find that policy that you talk of? So there's those types of things where, but it's not a bad thing. It's just that you also need to be able to navigate independently here. Nobody's going to hold your hand, and we shouldn't expect our hand to be held, but I do think that we can be a bit more elaborate, and a bit more intentional with our onboarding. But we had a lot of fun, and there's already been a lot of jokes made in that space already. But yeah, it's been very positive. Definitely. I definitely recommend IR Olav, just for the way they operate, their professionalism, as well as they actually, it's a team. It's a team of people that sees things through from point A all the way to point Z. They are really engaged all the way through. Would I recommend or advise anyone else to leave South Africa and come to the Netherlands? Yes and no. Why I say that is because this needs to be something that you really want to do, right? It has to be something that you really want to do, because moving to a different country is the nice fairy tale. It sounds very romantic and sweet, but it's actually very tough. It's a massive change. You are now going from a citizen to being a migrant. That in itself can be a big mental shift, paradigm shift. You are learning different cultures, different languages. All of a sudden, you are going to the store. Yeah, they don't have your favorite mayonnaise or tomato sauce or whatever. Might seem, silly, but all of these big and small nuances makes things a lot more interesting and a lot more difficult than people actually will admit. So I would recommend use IR Olav to help you relocate, but first make sure that this is something that you really, really want to do, because you don't want to be the guy that comes to the Netherlands for the fun of it, and then 3 months later you cry to go back home. You want to make sure that you've got a good appetite for change. You want to make sure that you're also able to deal with things that you don't like. I think you need a certain level of maturity in anything, and I think that it's a great adventure. I wouldn't reverse this decision for anything. Like, I'm so super sure of the decision we've made, me and my family, that there's not a day that I think about not making this decision. So yeah, easy. Sure. So I think one of the biggest benefits is, so there's many, right? I think if people look, there's different lenses you can answer this question through, right? Obviously, we know that South Africa is going through a very interesting time at the moment, and we know that in terms of security and safety, we know that there's many push factors in South Africa. But I would prefer not to focus on that, but that's obviously important, right? That's obviously important, but there's other benefits as well to living here besides the security. The Netherlands is a million times more safer than South Africa, but that's not the focus that I would like to focus on, or that's not the point that I would like to focus on. There's other benefits that I find very, very appealing. Being able to get into the car and drive for 25 minutes and then be in another country, for me, I think that's a good benefit. Being able to expose my children to very different ideas, very different people, even though we had that benefit in South Africa, because South Africa is also very multicultural. I do think that, this is a new experience. I do think that it's a new experience, not just for me, but it's a new experience at a generational level. So with us being here, one of the benefits is we have the opportunity to change the generational trajectory for our children, right? So, and that, whether that be in culture, whether that be in education, whether that be in opportunities in terms of the future, whether that be just for fun in terms of traveling, I think there's so many benefits that beyond the security aspect or the safety aspect that far, supersedes why we left South Africa. And one of the benefits, like I mentioned earlier, is being able to travel fairly easily and fairly cost effectively. And then, it's not like, if you look at the countries that surround the Netherlands, these are completely different countries with completely different languages and completely different architecture. So can you imagine how much you will learn and how much your children will learn and the rate that they will learn at? Because it's so different. So I think for me, that's one of the biggest benefits that I find living here. And did I mention it's very walkable? So yeah, it's easy to get around. Public transport works and it's easy to use. So excellent question. So we do a lot of walking. So me and my family love walking, right? We've always loved walking, like walking to places and jumping on a bus and then walking the last mile. So in South Africa, we haven't been able to do that as much as we would like to. But here, one of the first big changes has been we are doing a lot of walking again, me and my family, right? So even when I need to be at places, sometimes I'll use the car. Most of the time, I'll walk and use public transport. So that's a big change, a lot healthier, a lot more active. Another big lifestyle change, I would say, is in the Netherlands, there's so many ways to have fun without spending a lot of money. If you're smart and if you're just naturally curious. Like there's so many things to see here. Like you can literally, maybe it's because I'm new, I'm looking at things with fresh eyes, but there's so many things to see that you can literally take a bus to the city center and go explore so many different places without having to spend a lot of money or having to do a lot of, exotic or crazy things. So I think from a lifestyle perspective, it's so much more easier to keep our children entertained and engaged without, it becoming a super expensive experience. So I would say those are the two main things, a lot more walking and a lot less spending. I think that's a good combination. It's a winning combo. Right, I'd start with home affairs, but I'm not just trying to. So with my experience, I had 14 trips to the Department of Home Affairs. That's no exaggeration. 14 trips, 2,500 rands of petrol, because the challenge with Home Affairs is that it's not easy to make requests for multiple different things in one go. As an example, if you want to come for your passport and you want to get what do you call this, unabridged birth certificate, and you want to maybe get an unabridged marriage certificate. Each of those things, because the Department of Home Affairs takes so long to process the queues, each of those items requires you to stand in a different queue, and it most of the time requires you to spend your whole day at Home Affairs. Now, when you want to multiply that for 5 people, which is me and my family, you can easily see how 14 trips to the Department of Home Affairs becomes possible. So my advice would be to start with that, and at least in the Cape Town context, we usually go to the Home Affairs that's just outside of the city. So we went to, I think, Caledon. We went to like 6 different ones, but Caledon was the most helpful. So I would start with that. I would start with emailing them up front, saying what you are coming for. This helped us eventually on visit number 9. We email them to say that these are all the things we need, but we don't have the time and capacity to spend a full day for each one item just to apply for it. So what I would do is I would email the Department of Home Affairs up front and saying, these are the documents we need, and provide all the particulars up front, and then go to one of their branches to go get those things initiated all in one go. I didn't know this up front, but obviously if you are a single person, then you would have a different experience, right? So that's one big tip that will save you a lot of time if you have a family. Then there's obviously other smaller things like making sure that you still got a South African bank account and you've got a bank account in the Netherlands. One of the things that helped us a lot is you can open your Netherlands bank account while still in South Africa. So by the time you arrive in the Netherlands and you get your BSN number, then you just need to submit that BSN details through to the bank, and then they'll send you your card, but your account will already be active. They will just need to send you your card and some other little things they need to do, but you'll be able to transact like within a few days instead of another 2 weeks. So I'll set up my bank account while I'm in South Africa, en route to the Netherlands. The other thing I would do is I'll take it easy. I'll take it easy in terms of, oftentimes we want to be very meticulous. We want to have our checklist, because I'm like this with my stuff, right? But I do think we need to be flexible, and I do think it's important that we communicate up front if we see that there's potential delays. Like one of the things, I saw the delays with Home Affairs coming. I saw the delays coming with getting our documents apostilled. So I proactively contacted IR Olav and KEMBIT to say, guys, I'm not going to make the 1st of April. It's just not going to happen. Little did I know other guys were in the same position as well, because they have to go through the same process. And fortunately, IR Olav and KEMBIT were very empathetic, and they understood, and we could start at a later date. But I would communicate up front, and obviously be proactive and be aggressive, with things that needs to get done, whether it be the various appointments you have to attend to, whether it's Home Affairs or the banks. I would be very aggressive in trying to get those things done as soon as possible. Then the last tip, have fun. This is meant to be an adventure, not a death sentence. It's important to remind yourself that even though there's a lot of things at stake and this is a big decision, try to have fun. It's important. I do still take Dutch lessons. I've got 1 class per week, and that has been going very good. I also try to read as much Dutch as I can in my own time. At work at KEMBIT, people also speak Dutch predominantly. But still, I still know that building the vocabulary and getting my conversational Dutch skills up to where it needs to be is going to have to be an organic process that's going to take time. So that's going. There's a few, and when people ask me, then I can never repeat it because, I think ananas is one of the weirdest. I don't know if it's fun, but it's like, I just don't see how a pineapple can be called an anana. That's one. And, I don't want to sound like I'm making another one. We spoke about it yesterday. A muggie in Afrikaans. In Dutch, it's a mugge. Muggie itself is already a funny word, right? And then you translate it to Dutch, and then it's mugge. I found that super funny. And in Cape Town, we use muggie for 2 reasons. We use the muggie to describe an actual muggie, the flying pest. But we also use it to describe pestilent people, right? So when someone is, like a bit annoying, in Cape Town at least, we call them a muggie, So then you come here and they say, no, they call it a mugge. It's quite funny. So now I use that word for any random thing in Dutch. What else? What other words are there? Another word I thought was, ananas I said already. There's another few, but I don't know if they're appropriate for this clip. It can get dark very quickly. The Dutch have an interesting sense of humor, like us South Africans as well. For now, I think those are the main 2. Well, some words, the first word I had to relearn was het. Right? I think that's one of the biggest ones, het, because het has a different meaning in Dutch, and it's used very differently. what other ones are there?
Buyer is usually a word that everybody struggles
Yeah,
to.
buyer, because you start you're saying feeler, buyer, you are right, buyer, yes, buyer. Wait, there's another one. Now you got me thinking. Buyer. What else is there? There is a word, but I'm not going to say it. Slip, slip, right?
Yeah.
Slip is now that you can't use slip because it has a different meaning here. In South Africa, it's completely innocent. I threw in, so I never take the slip ever, but at the plus they asked for one day I was paying for some reason I asked for a slip that day. Why I needed to have the receipt, and then I asked for a slip. Luckily the lady at the till was like super chilled, and she just started laughing, and because she could hear, and I go to that same place for like everything. It's opposite the road, so they knew me already. They know that I'm not from here, so they knew that I'm not being malicious, right? But they started laughing, and then they explained to me, and then the next day when I came to work, I asked one of my colleagues, like, hey, what's the buzz around slip? So they said, no, what it means, and it's a reference to underwear, and it could be taken, in the wrong context, and it could be taken as you're trying to be disrespectful. But luckily at the store, they found it to be super funny. Like they could see that I'm out of place and it was innocent. But yeah, for me that was the funniest, weirdest, awkwardest one.